Hey, good morning. I'm Patricia Murphy. It's Wednesday. This is Seattle Now. Rainier Beach High School is the current home of the best boys high school player in the country. It's very exciting, but also raises questions about the future of high school athletics. We'll hear more about Tyran Stokes and what his young career represents in a minute. But first, let's get you caught up. A federal appeals court in Seattle will hear an immigration case today that could have major implications. A Trump administration policy requires mandatory detention for people who entered the U.S. illegally, regardless of how long they've lived in the U.S. The Northwest Immigrant Rights Project filed the suit, arguing that people should be given bond hearings. Oral arguments before the Ninth Circuit begin at 9 this morning. Remember when the city of Seattle approved a measure to allow housing near the stadiums? Well, that is looking increasingly unlikely. Today, the council will take up an ordinance that would repeal the law that would have allowed apartments in the stadium district. It comes after the law was struck down last year over how the city did its environmental review. Councilmember Eddie Lynn told Publicola not repealing the ordinance could put the city out of compliance with the Growth Management Act, which could threaten funding for transportation and housing. And Washington State would get a boost in federal funding for ferries if a new bill is passed by Congress. Washington's Emily Randall is co-sponsor of the Ferries Act, which would open up funding for Washington that previously hadn't been available. It could help Washington State Ferries electrify its fleet. The bipartisan bill is co-sponsored by a Democrat from California and two Republicans who represent districts in Alaska and New York. We're back with more headlines on tonight's episode of Seattle Now. The best boys high school basketball player in the country plays at Rainier Beach.
Here comes Tyran Stokes. Missed on the try. Vying for the loose ball. Another try doesn't go. Here comes Tyran Stokes. A third time he scores!
Tyran Stokes has captured the attention of the basketball world, but he also signals a major shift toward commercialization in the world of high school athletics. And it's all happening here in Seattle. Here to talk about Tyran Stokes and what he represents is Seattle Now sports correspondent Vaughn Jones. Vaughn, welcome to the chair.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, let's start with the big question here. Who is Tyran Stokes?
Yeah, Tyran Stokes plays basketball for Rainier Beach High School. He's the number one ranked boys high school basketball prospect in the entire country and a frontrunner for the Naismith Player of the Year award given to the best player in high school basketball. He is 6'8", 240 pounds, and plays like a man amongst boys a lot of the time. He is a multi-millionaire thanks to his ambassador contract with Nike, and he is the latest in a long line of Seattle high school basketball legends. I talked to Glenn Nelson, who's been doing great work covering Stokes and the Rainier Beach team for the South Seattle Emerald.
People say, should I go watch him play? Pay $10. I'm like, yeah, you're going to get your money's worth.
Glenn told me that this is one of the biggest Seattle sports stories right now, especially in South Seattle. And as you know, Trish, we've had a crazy year for sports. I think Stokes has gotten a bit overlooked in all the mayhem. Glenn's been covering basketball in a lot of different forms. He covered the Sonics for the Seattle Times during the Peyton and Kemp era, and he was involved in the creation of 3 major high school prospect evaluation publications, so he's seen a lot of players. He compared Stokes' footwork and shot making to names that I think you would recognize. Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan, do those names ring any bells?
Oh, of course. You? Yeah, well, even for a non-basketball fan, they ring a bell, yeah.
Yeah, so that's right. The next Michael Jordan could be playing for Rainier Beach High School in Seattle, Washington.
Okay, well, let's hear a little bit more about what it's like to see Stokes play. That opening audio told a little bit of a story.
Yes, I have not gotten the privilege because it is very hard to get into a Rainier Beach game, but I will tell you, it feels like I have been to every game because there is a lot of footage of Tyran Stokes. He is a top high school prospect in the social media age, so everyone's trying to get a piece, a video, a picture, anything while he's still somewhat accessible. Glenn Nelson has been to plenty of these games, which is why I went to talk to him. He says Stokes brings quite a crowd.
Especially during warm-ups, there are people crowding around, and there's extra security now and trying to clear them out. Back in the day when I was covering high school sports, I'd be the only one on the baseline. Now there's like 20 people crowded around me.
The atmosphere is really palpable during these games. I watched highlight after highlight of Stokes, dunking from between his legs, hitting step back threes, hitting these like emphatic blocks, doing things that an 18-year-old shouldn't be able to do consistently. And the crowd is just going bonkers. Here is a highlight of Stokes scoring on the younger brother of an NBA player.
And away goes Tyran Stokes. Stokes around Banchero. Stokes scores. What a move from Tyran Stokes.
You can't see the highlight, but imagine someone who is 6'8", handling the ball down the court, executing this perfect spin move. He hangs in midair. He dodges the outstretched hand of the defender. It looks like he's floating. It is absolutely crazy to watch. At all these games, people are running up and down the bleachers. Opposing fan bases are trying to do the overrated, all while Stokes is just dominating. He brings a sort of circus that just absolutely packs out a gym. I'm sure there are Rainier Beach players who are thinking, I did not sign up for this when I joined my public high school's basketball team, but there are advantages here too. College and even pro scouts are coming to these games. You get plenty of tape of playing well next to a guy like Stokes, and you get to be part of a historically good basketball team that, if all else fails, you can tell your kids about.
All right, well, it likely adds a lot of layers to what it's like to put on a basketball game at Rainier Beach High School, Vaughn. What makes Seattle such an attractive place for this young player?
Yeah, that's a really great question that has a few different answers. Sort of, you wonder why Seattle, because Stokes was born in Kentucky and he was playing high school football in California as recently as November of 2025. So in the middle of the academic year, he shocks the world by saying, I'm going to Rainier Beach. This is pretty mind-blowing because normally a talent of this caliber would be at a basketball academy, a private school, but Stokes chose public school here in Seattle. It is not hard to see why Rainier Beach is not your average public school. It has this really prestigious history of turning players into pros, like the legendary Jamal Crawford, DeJounte Murray, Doug Christie. They have a total of 7 NBA first-round picks in their history, which is top 20 in the entire country. Ty Stokes took notice as he told the YouTube channel All Hail Cullen.
Just the culture. Like, I look back at the history and the culture of the school, program. Coach Mike, he's won, he's lost a lot. I mean, when you look at the program, you look at the school, you walk in the gym, you see a bunch of banners, state championship. That's all it's about.
Sports Illustrated reports, though, a slightly different story, that Stokes does love the public school experience, but that he was facing disciplinary issues at the school he played football at in California and decided to move schools in order to still be able to play basketball his senior year. There's been some argument about whether or not Stokes should have been allowed to play at Rainier Beach by the letter of the law with the WIAA, which is our state's high school athletics board. He technically shouldn't be. It is unclear how he's been able to, but this is a new era of high school athletics. Glenn Nelson told me that Stokes chose Rainier Beach for the potential to go pro. It also helps that NBA legend Jamal Crawford is now an assistant coach at Rainier Beach, coaching his son JJ, who's currently a freshman.
People want to go there for the facilities, the people, kind of the legacy, trying to one-up past generations. And I don't see any stopping of that.
They also just opened up a brand new basketball court last year, ironically called Jamal Crawford Court, and now he's an assistant coach there. Stokes knows he's going to go pro, and Rainier Beach can help him do that while maintaining this fun public school atmosphere that Stokes apparently really loves.
All right, help me understand a little bit more about this mid-season move, Vaughn. Is this kind of thing unusual?
I would say it's becoming increasingly common just based on the era that high school sports is entering right now. I spoke to Linda Flanagan, the author of a book called Take Back the Game, How Money and Mania Are Ruining Kids' Sports. She has a very strong stance on this. Once college sports begin to pay players for NIL, name, image, and likeness, that commercialization began to leak down to the high school level and turned high school into a facsimile of the college system where players move around and transfer more frequently.
If you're fine with high schools recruiting and getting the best teams, plucking them around from around the country and depositing them in your team so you can dominate, that's, to me, is a violation of what high school sports are supposed to be.
Linda argues that high school sports are supposed to be like a character builder. It's where you learn teamwork, friendship, how to express yourself, the importance of kind of daily movement and exercise, but it's become more of a chase towards money as college has also shifted that way. And of course, why wouldn't that be the case? If you're as talented as Ty Stokes, you can secure a financial future for yourself, for your parents. And if you have those natural gifts, you're going to want to chase that opportunity. I said something earlier that I want to emphasize. Stokes is a multi-millionaire thanks to an ambassador contract with Nike. He is a senior in high school, 18 years old, with an estimated NIL valuation of about $3 million. And that means, in no uncertain terms, that Stokes' high school experience and in the future his college experience are going to be different from anyone with just average athletic talent. And that means he and those around him think it's okay for him to change teachers, classes, textbooks, all that stuff, pick up and move in the middle of the year.
That is stunning. Seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really is representative of a new era that we're entering. Washington State is one of, actually, I looked into this, the laws have changed in recent years. 45 different states have examples of high school players taking NIL money. And you can sign in many of these states as a minor. You can make life-changing money at 15, 16, 17.
Vaughn, it is really a stunning example of what can happen when money enters into the equation in sports.
Yeah, absolutely. I think at the high school level, basketball players, especially football players, are playing not just for their school, but playing year-round. And that can do a lot of damage to somebody's body at a young age. You may feel invincible, but you definitely are not. It can do a lot of damage to somebody's mind at a young age to be exposed to this level of fame and also this level of monetary gain at 16, 17, 18. And it can also lead to a lot of burnout if you're playing the same sport year round.
Yeah, how is this showing up for Stokes at this point? Because it sounds like there's an awful lot of hype and expectations around him.
This is the part of Stokes' story that I think is not new. I want to take you back, Trish, to 2002 and give you another name that you may know. LeBron James, a senior at St. Vincent St. Mary High School in Akron, Ohio. He is on the cover of Sports Illustrated holding a gold basketball next to the words, "The Chosen One." We have done this for a long time, crowning athletes as the next legend at a very young age. Glenn Nelson told me that when you're connected, and honestly at this point famous, like Ty Stokes is, you have a lot of support. It helps that Jamal Crawford is in his ear as a former pro and an assistant at Rainier Beach. Stokes has scrimmaged against professional players old and new. Legends of the Seattle basketball scene want an opportunity to play with him and see if this kid is the real deal. When you're this good, people remind you of that all the time and make you feel like you belong and that you're ready for the next step. So that hype and expectations for a player like Ty Stokes is managed.
High school sports don't get a lot of attention on Seattle now, Vaughn. Why pay attention to this story and this player?
I think this story is a lot bigger than just a kid playing at a high school. This is huge for Rainier Beach High School. This is huge for the Rainier Beach neighborhood. It's huge for Seattle's credit as a place where talented athletes go. Glenn Nelson actually told me an interesting story. He was supposed to be covering Rainier Beach to talk about the connection between Jamal Crawford and his son JJ. And then all of a sudden, Ty Stokes shocks the world and says, "I'm going to Rainier Beach." That turned Glenn's pursuit into something totally different and something he hasn't really experienced since he covered the NBA.
Crowds of people following them everywhere. Rainier Beach, when they're at West Seattle, people were banging on the side of their buses, like I've seen. I've ridden on NBA buses, like you'd see that, but now you're seeing that on the high school level.
Glenn used the term Rainier Mania. He compared it to the Beatles, and in some ways, he's kind of not wrong. Even outside the city, every social media post about Ty is raking in thousands and thousands and sometimes millions of views. Even if you're not a sports person, I think the story is a big deal. If Stokes is the next Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, Seattle benefits in a bunch of ways, like being put back on the map as a basketball town, increasing your NBA chances, for example.
Oh, all right. Vaughn, what can you say about how Ty Stokes' story fits in with the bigger picture of amateur athletics?
Yeah, this is a really big question. As we've sort of been talking about, what do you make of an 18-year-old high school senior that is already a multimillionaire, transferred schools mid-year, has millions of photos and videos posted about him? I asked Linda Flanagan about this, and she says Ty Stokes is now the prime example of how money has started to change youth sports.
There's this creeping commercialization and professionalization. It's gone from the pros to college, and now it's like seeping into youth sports. And that's been true for decades. It's just reached kind of new levels in the last, say, 5 years.
She expressed a lot of concern about that. What happens when you treat high school players like professional athletes? Academics get put to the side. You lose out on these sorts of developmental years of your life in some ways. You play your sport year-round that can lead to burnout, but you're promised this really intense level of fame, multi-million-dollar contracts, setting you and your family up for life. As Glenn Nelson put it, it puts players like Ty Stokes in a position to become heroes in their community.
There'll be kids swarming, courtside and then outside the locker room, and he'll stop and spend time with them. And so it's obvious that there's hero worshiping going on, among grade schoolers and middle schoolers who are looking up to him.
This has always been a conundrum of sports. It's seen as sort of a pathway towards wealth or success, but it's never been a pathway this early before. We're getting to the stages where players can get paid before they can even drive. And we don't really have time to get into all of the psychological ramifications of something like that. But we are entering a territory that some experts are seeing as really dangerous for the development of high school-aged students, players, people.
Vaughn, what's next for Ty Stokes? Is he next in line in the lineage of Seattle basketball stars? Is that remain to be seen?
I think yes. I think he's going to go down as one of the best one-year wonders in the history of the city. Even though his time here is short, Seattle will probably claim Ty Stokes as a product of its basketball environment.
Wow. He gets local status?
Yes. It's been very hard to see him play in high school gyms all year, but the state playoffs are this week. Stokes plays at the very least tomorrow morning and likely again on Saturday at the Tacoma Dome. That means it will be much easier to get a ticket because the dome is much larger than any high school gym. The games are also streamed online on something called NFHS Network if you can't make it down to Tacoma. And after the state playoffs this weekend, Stokes will likely announce where he's headed to college. Unfortunately, the University of Washington is likely not on his radar. He'll be going to one of the basketball blue bloods like Kentucky or Kansas. He's also apparently, due to his Nike connection, considering the University of Oregon. So he actually would not be very far away. One big note that Glenn Nelson told me, Seattle's basketball stars tend to spend time helping the next generation, even if they're not from here originally. He pointed to Gary Payton and Sean Kemp as people who are influenced in our local basketball scene still. So there's a chance that Ty looks back on his time here fondly and comes back later in his career to help foster this new generation. But we do not know what that new generation will look like because 5 to 10 years from now, high school athletics may look very different.
Well, maybe he comes back to play on the future Seattle Supersonics team.
Let's knock on wood.
Seattle Now sports correspondent Vaughn Jones, thanks so much for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you listening to Seattle Now, and thanks to our generous donors for your financial support. Give us an assist, rate and review the show on your favorite podcast app. Today's episode was produced by Vaughn Jones with help from Brooklyn Jamerson Flowers. It was edited by Caroline Chamberlain Gomez. Our production team also includes Andy Hurst and Paige Browning. Greg Kramer does our theme music. Seattle Now and KUOW Public Radio are members of the NPR network. I'm Patricia Murphy. See you soon.